What's up, everybody? Oh man, my fucking I gotta deactivate. My computer like crashed, like partway crashed, like right before the stream. So this is me frantically. Yay, there I am. How's it going? Just frantically trying to get everything working because it was like 12:59 and 45 seconds, and suddenly my computer just like freezes, which causes my camera to crash, which causes Pro Tools to crash. So super dope. But anyway, how's everybody doing this week? Awesome. So welcome to another Q&A. Let's see. Ascend the Hollow says hello there. How's it going, man? Good to see you. I am or 666. Good to see you again. Brandon Sills says pretty good so far. Unfortunately, missing out of the competition though because blue screen of death rules every day at random. Dude, I feel that. I feel that on a deeply personal level. However, you don't necessarily have to have the best audio quality to, what you're doing. Honestly, if you wanted to just have like your playing along to it and just using the camera audio, like that's honestly like just as good and valid an entry as somebody who's actually composing the song or whatever. So like, don't let something like overloaded like sessions or something like that kind of bringing you down and making it basically not tenable to really get like a good track together. But I mean, like, you should definitely put something forward, have some fun, have a good time composing a riff or whatever. You don't know what you're going to get out of it. But I definitely understand the frustration of blue screen of death. I still, even though I have this monstrous rig next to me that still is a Windows PC and still has issues. As aforementioned, for some reason something happens and like my drives disconnect from my computer for a split second, I guess. I don't know why. But yeah, Pro Tools will always crash when that happens, and it always seems to happen when I'm streaming. So I definitely get the troubles. But if you want to, write a riff, have the Neural DSP playing through, and just have the track playing on Windows Media or something like that, and just play along to it. Like that's just as valid an entry as anything else. So cool. And he follows up. Brandon Souls says the question is, how are you doing? I'm great, dude. Things are awesome. As I've mentioned before, I moved my studio into my apartment, so that's where I am at currently. I'm happy, healthy, and safe currently. LA's been very, very quiet. It's very, very strange because I do still occasionally go out to like, obviously get groceries and whatever. But like, it's very strange being able to see like the mountains in the distance because the air is like so clean right now because everybody's staying at home. So it's very surreal, sort of feeling at the moment. I'm missing being able to go to the gym whenever I want to. So working out at home has been a little bit of an issue. But I'm hoping to overcome that pretty quick though. Yeah, I don't know if that's too much or whatever, but anyway. But TLDR, things are going good. I'm working on the artist tones video that's going to drop this Friday, which I'm like super stoked about. I actually got a handful of other musicians involved in this. So it's a big collaboration between me and three other dudes. So I actually got like a real drummer in here, bass player, vocalist. So I'm super stoked on it. I'm really hoping that you guys enjoy it. Because it did take a lot of work to put together, a lot of coordination, and then the song itself was really challenging. So anyway, moving on. Modern Vintage, what's up, dude? How's it going? He says, hey, Steven, any chance of doing a Misha or Absalom, Absalom or Holcomb? I don't know. Misha preset for the Grandifier plugin. He said he ordered the actual amp and likes neural plugins, so it seems Omega can do this tone. I could definitely see that being a thing coming up soon. I'm actually going to be working with another dude, Joao, and he's got a bunch of covers on his YouTube channel, and he's offered to just send me all the stems, so that way I can just dial in the tones and then just go from there. So, yeah, he has a bunch of periphery tracks that I think would be really, really good to do on the channel. So, yeah, that's definitely going to happen at some point. I'm working on a Meshuggah thing as well. Pretty quick, maybe like a top 5 user voted, because I put up put up a post in the Facebook group, and just to see who had the favorite, who had their own favorite riffs from Meshuggah, and I might do a top 5 or something like that. But yeah, so I'm looking to do some Misha pretty soon, some Misha tones pretty soon. What's up, Carl? How's it going, dude? Adriano says, "Hey all, greetings from Germany. Hopefully you guys are all doing well." Yeah, as I said, things are going pretty well for me. I hope everybody else who's tuning into the chat and to the live stream are doing pretty well as well. I know it's been rough for some people. I've been getting some messages on the side from some individuals who've lost their job due to the COVID-19 stuff. So I definitely feel for you guys. Modern Vintage says, "Archetype Matt Heafy." Matt's a good guitar player, dude. He's awesome. I think I talked about him like a couple of months ago, that he's an interesting character. One of these people who just like unfortunately got like memed as like, at least as far as like I saw, he got memed a lot, but he's a super talented dude, a super nice guy. But I've watched a couple of his Twitch streams, which have been really, really interesting to see. I honestly feel that a lot of the music industry and performance and artists are going to end up going more towards live streaming anyway. So I think that he's kind of pioneering that a little bit. So it's cool to watch him kind of get in on that on the, early on. Hell yeah. Matthias Ganser says, "John from URM Academy hooked me up like promised, and it's awesome." Dude, I'm super glad to hear that. Honestly, like I love the URM Academy, the community there, and the product that they give is really, really good. Considering that I'm a student of theirs as well, like that was like the main place that I got most of my information as far as learning how to mix and master and produce and everything like that. So yeah, I'm glad that you took advantage of that. I'm super stoked to see how it plays out in your own personal productions and mixing and stuff like that. So awesome. How to those of you who tuned in last week, how did you guys enjoy the conversation? I know like the chat wasn't super lively, but I feel like John and I were kind of like holding our own conversation, and maybe people felt like they couldn't ask a question because they might derail the conversation or something like that. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you guys felt about the conversation, whether you thought that it was valuable to what you guys are looking to do, because I've been thinking that either one of two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to have more guests on this weekly Q&A session that I hold, or I could have a separate session like on Mondays or something like that. So that way I could have like a live chat with somebody on Monday and then do just the live Q&A stream like normal on Wednesdays. So I'm curious to get your guys' feedback on that, since you are the ones that were actually tune into this channel. So yeah. Brandon Sills comments on me speaking about the smog in LA. He says, "I miss breathing the smog while at NAMM for some weird reason." It's got a particular stench, that's for sure. And it's been interesting going outside and like being like, I'm breathing easier right now. I don't know why. Ascend the Hollow asks, question, Quad Cortex, is it coming as a rack version, pretty please? I don't think that that's in the works at the moment. Right now, we just have the floor model planned. So we are going to... I just know that the rack models sell infinitely smaller numbers than the floor models do. Because most people, what they do is they get a floor modeler and then they find a way to put it in their rack. Same with any other foot pedal or anything like that. And then they find a MIDI controller so that way they can control it from remotely or have somebody else do it or something like that. So I don't think that there's going to be one. I'm not 100% sure. That's not really my area of expertise, or my area at the company. I think it's something that they may consider in the future, but as far as current plans are, they're just focusing on the pedal board. So if it does happen, it's going to be further down the line, after the pedal board really kind of like goes off. So, oh, Michael D, what's up, dude? He says, all good here. Gonna finish my entry for the competition after this. Cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious to see how many people are going to be submitting this time. I know the number's probably going to be higher this time than before. I've gotten a lot of messages from people asking about the drums and how they can edit it and whatnot. So, yeah, if you guys don't know, there's a competition going on the channel. Check out the videos. It went up earlier I think it went up April 1st or something like that. April 3rd. Competition, riff writing, and solos. So go check it out. It's on this channel. There's plenty of chances for people to win. And then we'll do a live stream. I believe it was on the 6th or the week after, 6th or the 13th. I can't remember exactly what date I called out. But yeah. All right. Jonathan Hatcher says, great, been spending a lot of time with the Plini plugin. Now running a line out from my interface into my effects return on my head into my cabinet, turning the cab sim off using Plini as a real amp. Fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah. That's awesome to hear. It's been interesting seeing how people kind of go about that. Some people are using, because when you go into your head, you're still utilizing the power amp, which is going to saturate the signal, which is going to color it a little bit differently. So I'm curious how people are compensating for that as far as dialing in the tones in the box and then going out and having to adjust it in the real world or something like that. But yeah, no, I'm kind of curious how people are compensating for that. Let's see. David Durden says, please make intervals amp plugin or era. That'd be pretty cool. I mean, if you ask for it, then the guys are gonna know. They're gonna see it, and then we'll see what happens. Modern Vintage asks a question. Any word on the Nolly update release and when we can expect the next plugin? Thanks. Man, I'm gonna answer this, but you can already know the answer to this. It's gonna be soon. I can't give any release dates. I can't give any, or as far as future plugins are concerned, there's some plugins coming up, but I can't really speak about when they're coming out. It's just, we got one coming up and I'm really excited for it. That's all I'm going to say. I always feel bad for answering like that. I know I legitimately cannot talk about this stuff, but I'm so excited to see what you guys think of the next one. So, but yeah. Let's see. Oh, my chat's going fucking crazy. It's jumping around. Jake Marzini asks, any new Minute Mix videos planned? I don't know. So the Minute Mix videos were probably the least well-performing video series on the channel. It's even though I work for somebody else, how should I put this? I'm not as much a slave to the algorithm as other people, right? My income doesn't depend on AdSense. So I can put out information that I feel will be valuable, but maybe not catch as much, right? So but at the same time, I do want to drive more people to the channel, so I do have to consider and evaluate the analytics of the videos. So when I look at the analytics for the Minute Mix videos, they actually performed the worst out of any of the series that I've done so far. Which kind of sucks, but I mean, I get it. It is whatever it is as far as what will catch and what won't catch. The Artist Tone series was immediately a hit. So I leaned heavily into that. And then I tried to basically do similarly to the Minute Mix. It's basically the Minute Mix was just I take a singular idea or thought or technique and extrapolate on that and try to get it through as quickly as I can. But I still try to do that in my regular videos where I try to address how I dialed in the tone, specific mix techniques, just in a longer format. It's I generally like shorter content. That's the stuff that I normally watch in my free time. Um, unless it's gameplay videos, in which case video games are my life and I love them. Been on that Doom Eternal kick for a couple of weeks now, and I fucking love that game. Um, but yeah, so I don't have any Minute Mix videos planned at the moment. Right now um, right now the thing that I'm currently working on, like I have a handful of artist tones more in the rock genres planned, and then I'll probably start moving back over into some more metal stuff. As I mentioned earlier, I'm probably going to do some Meshuggah and maybe some Periphery. But I'm curious to hear what you guys are wanting to see on the channel as well, because I mean, like, this is actually the first time that I've even heard from anybody about the Minimix videos since I stopped them, really. So many months. But yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, you know, if that's something that you're interested in seeing again, you know, I'm curious to see what you want me to go over specifically. Or if I might even be able to just handle it here on the channel currently. Like, you know, these live streams are for Q&A, so if you have something that you were like, you know, explain the side chaining, you know, the kick to the base or whatever, you know, it's like I'm curious. Yeah, feel free to ask it in the ask it in the chat, and I'll see if I can pull it off. I mean, we'll see if we'll see if Pro Tools will open for me. I'm gonna try opening Pro Tools real quick. And then while that's opening, let's go ahead and make sure my audio is still good. Great. Okay. Giuseppe, dude, fuck yeah. I know the Pliny has actually been one of our best performing plugins so far. Like I have my own personal things, you know, but like the Pliny's definitely been one of the, like, has caught on the most. Jake Marzini, yeah, so he says, speaking of Doom Eternal, any kind of Mick Gordon preset would be sick. I'm currently working on some stuff that I think would do really well for that. Since Doom Eternal came out, I want to do some covers. So yeah, so I'll have a couple of videos coming up pretty soon. Yeah, Mr. Kiyami says, I would love to see some vintage rock artist tones videos. So I have a couple of non-vintage rock, but I have a couple of like modern or like not exactly like, you know, like maybe 90s grunge rock-ish kind of stuff going on. I'll tell you right up, the artist tones video coming out Friday is Thrice's Black Honey. And I'm really stoked on that one. So I'm going to see if Pro Tools is going to start for me. If not, I might be kind of, you know, SOL. Calston asks, says, 2 questions. What is your favorite DSP plugin? And why is it the Nameless? Dude, the Nameless is still one of my go-tos. Like that modded Marshall tone is just so tasty and so crisp. It's definitely one of my go-tos for sure. Let me think. I still go with the Nolly fairly frequently. Like that 5150 kind of tone that third head gives me is really sweet. And is kind of unique in the Neural DSP line right now. The 5150 and that Nolly, that third head in the Nolly archetype is kind of like singular. So that's one that I go to pretty often. The NTS is always still a favorite of mine, especially if I want to do more like techie kind of death metal-y kind of stuff. So Brandon Sills asks, if you're covering the Doom stuff, do you have the power or array of things to also do the synth grind? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that wouldn't be a difficulty at all. Honestly, like I might even enlist. I have a post production dude that I think I'm gonna hit up and have him use the Neural DSP stuff to get some of those tones. Because I know Mick has used the Neural DSP plugins before, especially the Dark Glass. FX80 brings up an interesting point. There are no videos where compared guitar pickups with some default settings or something. This could tell more about tones and what you could do with the plugin. Um, I would have to get okay. So there, you have to know something about me. When I want to like do comparisons and experiments, I don't want to go half-assed on them. So I would need a wide array of instruments and pickups, and like I would need to make sure that all my variables are set. Like I get like way into the weeds when it comes to experiments like this, because I have I love science, and I love the idea of like picking out the variables. I love the idea of picking out like exactly how signals are affected by different pickups. So I would need to have like a pretty wide array of pickups selections. So I mean, like if any company wants to partner up and do a video with me on something like that, then hell yes, I'm down for it. But it would basically be like right now I have a set of EMG 81s, 85s, my Jazzmaster, a Squire, Telly, the Comparison, and like maybe one or two other guitars. So that's not really a good sample set, if I were to use the term. Like that would just show you how a Jazzmaster, how 81s, 85s would work. So like it gives you a little bit of a difference, but it's like I don't feel like that's a thorough enough thing to do currently. So that's something I want to do in the future for sure. But I kind of have to I have to reach out to a lot of companies, and there's a lot of like groundwork that has to be put in beforehand to do something like that. So yeah, I definitely want to do something. Long story short, I want to do something like that, but it's going to take some groundwork and some legwork beforehand to do something like that. Jake Marzini says, saw somewhere that the bass tones for Doom Eternal were Eurobass run through the Dark Glass and Parallax. Oh, I could definitely see that. I think that Mick, I don't want to misquote him. I think that Mick used the Dark Glass on Doom Eternal, but I'm not 100% sure. I would have to do a little bit more research on that. But yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I know that he's used our products on other projects that he's worked on. But I'm not sure about Doom Eternal. I haven't really looked into it just yet. So Carlston asks another question about the Nameless. Why is it called the Nameless? It's a very cool name, but I'd love to know the origin of its name. I'm gonna leave that for the owners of the company. They tell the story very well. So we'll, and I don't know, like I know the story, but I don't want to tell somebody else's story. So when I get either Doug or Francisco on the live stream, we'll leave that question for them, since that's more their experience. IMR 666, Parallax will probably do the job for the synths. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it depends on the tone that you want to go for, because I feel like the Dark Glass does really well at having those sort of like kind of honky mid-range that I kind of like, especially if you're going for a little bit more mid-level. Like if you want to get like that like clanky scooped sound, like the Parallax is perfect for that. Or you could potentially EQ some mid-ranges in there. But I find that the Dark Glass has sort of more of that vintagey kind of tone, like especially on the VDU settings that I tend to like. So yeah, no, I agree though. Like I think that the oh yeah. Sorry, I'm going to switch over to a different question, or a different comment. So Brandon Sills says Doom Eternal OST is sex, but sucks that Mick got stiffed on the mix job. Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened with that situation. I've read a couple of articles recently, actually today, I think. Today or yesterday, and I'm kind of just bringing myself up to speed on the issues that are happening currently, and yeah, like especially because it seems like the tracks were not handled with as much care as the previous game, like Doom 2016, like that album as an entirety is so solid. I listened to BFG Division on the regular. That's like my hype song. Like the BFG division, that's like the song that I want to pump me up if I'm doing like heavy lifting or deadlifts or something like that. So I love the other and you can tell that there's like a little bit different approach, or I don't know, there's a different vibe to this current soundtrack. It still slams and I still like it, but it's definitely different. It's definitely not as organic as the previous one. And even playing like the video games, like during the video game, like I kind of like snap out of like video game mode and like the engineer takes over and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting choice. But yeah, I didn't know that was originally, up until today or yesterday or maybe earlier this week, did I hear that Mick wasn't the one that mixed his the album, which, you know, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. We'll see what actually happens, because this is something that I feel could become a viral topic, and hopefully even potentially sort some change out. Who knows? Maybe Bethesda will end up having Mick remix his own tracks and then re-release the album, because if this gets enough steam behind it and Bethesda feels that, you know, okay, well, people aren't happy with this, and, you know, maybe there's potential to change, you know, I don't know if they'll update the actual game, but maybe if they get the soundtrack with Mick's touch on it, that might actually do pretty well for Bethesda. And especially, I feel like they've actually been a pretty good company as far as listening to the consumers. But anyway, yeah. Brandon Sill says Doom 2016 was very dynamic in amplitude range, but someone else took most of the work for Eternal and just sausaged it. No dynamics, that ear fatigue. Sad day for Doom kind. Yeah, I agree. Somebody posted up the waveforms back to back, and you can tell that 2016 was very dynamic. Had a lot of range, whereas this one just got just straight lines all the way across, which sucks, you know. Giuseppe asks, will you make updates on plugins as additional effects? Okay, so we're currently, you know, we're always doing updates on the plugins to improve the quality and the, you know, algorithms, you know, to address bugs and that sort of thing. I'm not sure about additional effects. You know, like the very first iteration of the Fortin Nameless, I think it just had the Zool, if I'm not mistaken, and then they added in the hex drive and the grind afterwards, which I thought was really great. That was actually one of the reasons why I ended up really falling in love with the company anyway, because I was like, this is, you know, an entirely different ball game with these two additional additional additions. With these two additions. But yeah, I don't know as far as additional effects are concerned, though. I know that they're you know, considering these things, but whether it's, you know, whether they're actually going to implement it or not, I'm not really sure. Scotty Dog, what's up, dude? How's it going? Good to see you. Jake Marzini says, feel like you can get away with putting parallax on everything and it'll sound awesome. Did I agree? I've used parallax on pretty much every project I've done. Even the Thrice cover, I still have parallax compressing the low end on my bass. So this is something I've run into recently. David Durden says, your plugins are great, but I miss more bass with the Nameless. When you gain new knowledge to reproduce the sound of the amps, will there be an update of Nameless and the other plugins at some point? Okay, so David, here's the thing. There's going to be a vast difference between listening to an amp through a cabinet and the plugins. Okay, so your listening environment is very, very crucial to the representation of the audio coming from your speakers. If you don't have the speakers big enough to drive the sound, you're not going to get that low end. Like I have 8-inch speakers in front of me, and they do a pretty good job of representing the low end. I could go as low as 5-inch speakers, maybe, like the JBL LSR 305s I've heard are pretty decent. But if you're listening like on computer speakers or something like that, they're not really going to represent the low end quite as much. However, there's a couple of different things that you can do with the Nameless to boost low end should you want it, right? So like the grind pedal, if you have the grind pedal on, that's going to suck out so much of your low end. I actually rarely use the grind pedal because that just it's not really my particular style. I feel like it sucks out a little bit too much low end for what I do. Oh, no worries, no worries. David says, "Sorry, I'm from German. My English is bad. It's okay. It's all good, dude. I totally understand." We service pretty much everybody in the world, so like there's a lot of people who are in the forums who English is not their native language. So I totally get it. It's all good, man. It's all good. But yeah, so there's a couple of different things that you can do to improve the low end quality of the Nameless. If you wanted to go that route, so like turning up the master volume control and then backing off of the output. That'll saturate the power amp section and give you a lot more low mids. And then what you can do also, you can turn on the hex drive and then darken up your signal a little bit by changing the tone knob. The gain 2, I believe, on the head, if you turn that up, you'll get a distinct boost in low end. So yeah, so a lot of those issues can be solved. Also, you can also change the impulse response, like moving the microphone further away from the speaker cap or the cap will darken up your tone as well. So yeah, so like there's a couple of different things to think about. Like a lot of people don't know. Because a lot of people are just now getting into like these plugins, is that your listening environment is crucial to the way these plugins interact with your ears. So like even now, like so this is a very bad environment for mixing. Like I'm having to send my mixes off for revision, or at least to like double check my work more often, because like this room like has a lot of flutter echo. And there's a lot of like low mids, and I'm it's IMR 666 says, "Don't be ashamed of your burps." I'll apologize always on stream. In person's different, but on stream I'll always apologize. But yeah, so your listening environment does affect, like you could, like, not to get super nerdy, but even if you have like speakers that are as big as mine, if you're in the wrong spot, the wrong listening spot, the sound waves can actually cancel out. You'll be in what's called a null spot, and you won't hear specific frequencies or low end. It's a particularly deep rabbit hole that you can go down when it comes to listening. But yeah, so like when I listen to the Neural DSP plugins, because I have my listening environment at least somewhat tuned in, or at least know my speakers well enough, I know that I have the right amount of low end. Like these plugins can get pretty beefy pretty quick. But yeah, anyway, that is a very, very long answer to that. So hopefully that helps. Jake Marzini asks, don't know if you've already gone over it, but what kind of monitors are you using? So I have the JBL LSR 308s. I have the 10-inch subwoofer, but I don't use it because I'm in my apartment right now. And actually, I don't know if I need it. Like I've been mixing, and my low end is fine as it is. Like I actually hear a good representation of my low end even in my apartment without the subwoofer. So I've actually been kind of rethinking my setup recently as far as whether I actually need the sub at all. But yeah, so I'm using the LSR 308s currently, and I'm looking to eventually upgrade from that. But these have gotten me really, really far. They're budget monitors, and I've been using these 4 years now, maybe 4.5. But yeah, they've been really, really great. Very solid. Not a single issue with them. Okay, let me scooch back up in my chat real quick, so see if I missed anything, because I know my chat will jump every now and again if I scroll down and there's like new messages. Okay. Okay. So Matthias Ganster he asks, can you recommend a good, affordable mix bus compressor with side chain function high pass filter, like the Slate Digital VBC FG Gray? It's a bit pricey. Okay, wait for the SSL compressor from Waves. Let me just pull that up for you. See if I can. There we go. I use the Waves bus compressor. Like, this has been like my go-to for a while. I was using the FG Gray for a little bit, but I actually canceled my Slate subscription. I found that I just stopped using them after a while. But yeah, so this is, I can even just, I'll just play a little bit with the compressor on and off. So yeah, I use that. If you need something, I mean, like, I don't really sidechain on my master bus that much, to be honest. I do have, like, actually, let me go back to this real quick. Yeah, so I do have my Pro Q3 before my master bus, just to like filter out a little bit low end, just to make sure that the low end isn't pumping my my compressor, because generally the compressor is just going to be handling the transients of the kick and the snare. So that's normally what I'll use it for. Yeah, I like this one. I like this one a lot. It's been really, really good. Good solid compressor. I mean, like, there's a reason why like professionals use this one over, you know, a lot of the others. Like the FG Gray is not bad. You know, I definitely used that for a while, but I ended up going back over to this, and then eventually just got rid of my Slate subscription altogether, just because I wasn't using it. So it was just ended up being a drain on my finances week to week, or month to month, excuse me. So that's kind of where I sit on it. I just use the SSL compressor, and it seems to do pretty well. All right, so back down to the bottom. Scotty Dog, yeah, you called it Thrice's Black Honey. That's the next Artist Tones video. That'll go up on Friday. Let's see. Sasha asks an interesting question. How to find a bottleneck. In other words, how to understand that you've reached the limits of your current equipment and have to buy something new. Interesting. That's really fascinating question. Let me think about that for a second, because I feel like the way that I go about it, or at least the way that I've been going about it over the past like 6 or 8 months, is I've actually simplified my workflow, right? Like, I've tried to get rid of most plugins from my workflow. Like, I have like a couple of compressors that I use, one, maybe 2 EQs, and then like a couple maybe specialized, like transient designers or something like that. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to just become as adept at utilizing those few plugins. And then once I feel I've sort of peaked out with those ones, then I'll add in something else. Because then I can know for certain that it's like, okay, well, I'm not quite getting what I want out of these plugins. But generally the way I feel it is like, you're going to get through there. I think that you'll notice when you plateau, right? You'll start to feel like, okay, I'm not really getting like the thump that I want out of this stuff, or I'm not doing this, that, or the other. But like, there's 2 things that you can do that I know will help you out as well. Comparisons to other mixes, using like Magic A/B, or just pulling a mix into your session and then just like flipping back and forth between the 2 and then listening for what you can improve upon. is going to help you considerably, especially like, because if you can approach it as like, like I feel like my low end isn't getting balanced enough. What song do I listen to that has like a great kick bass relationship? Like what mix am I a fan of where you can just hear that like that low end like thud, right? Like and then just kind of go through, analyze it, and then see what you can do to change those sort of things. So like the Thrice mix, for example, like I do a lot of comparisons to the original mix when producing and mixing the tracks, right? I have to. It's, I'm trying to get as close to the original tones or at least to the original vibe as possible. So I do a lot of comparisons to the original mix. And a lot of that also has to do with just like EQing and soloing out bands that I feel are problematic or I don't have dialed in correctly. So like on this Thrice mix, for example, my kick wasn't hitting like his kick was hitting. Like his kick had a specific sort of punch and like to the low end bloom that was sort of like in and out. Like it didn't go thud. Like there wasn't that trail off of the kick like that. It was very much like dee, dee, dee. So I had to go through, and I'm sounding like an idiot right now too. But I had to go through and do like experiments after that and figure out like, okay, so I have maybe the wrong samples playing, or maybe I don't have my correct compressor dialed in correctly, or maybe my EQ. So I'm looking at a couple of different things where, it's like I have maybe Pro Q3 up, and then I have my track and their track going through. I'm soloing one after the other, and then like I maybe have like a low pass to 200 hertz, right? So I'm just listening to the lows and the low, like, like the bass and the sub bass, right? Then I can listen to those relationships soloed out. And then I can listen to like, okay, well, is my level correct? Okay, level's correct. I'm peaking about the same height, right? Or like the feeling is about right as far as how loud my kick is. Okay, so what happens afterwards? Like really like kind of think about what it would look like in waveform function. And I'm kind of getting into the weeds right now. I'm working this out in my head, the process as I go. So it's like, okay, well, the low end seems to just like hit and then it's gone. Okay, so maybe dial in a compressor, so that has a very a long attack and a quick release. So that way the compressor actually dips out the tail end, so like the low end blooms and then is hit by the compressor and ducked out of the way. So you get that smack of the low end and then it goes away. But yeah, so a lot of comparisons, a lot of soloing out bands that you feel you're not quite dialing in correctly. And then like the biggest thing, send your mix to other people for them to critique it. Like people that you know and respect and you feel that they have a good grasp on how to, communicate what you're lacking. Like I have a community of people that I go to, like I have private chats and individuals who have said that they're more than happy to help me with mixing and critiquing and stuff like that. So like John Maciel is one of those people, like I could send a mix to him and I know like that dude has an ear that is far more advanced than mine is. So when he comes back with a critique, I take it seriously. And then I know to look for those things in future mixes as well. So it's a very long answer to that question, but that kind of set me on an interesting path. So no, thank you for the question, man. I appreciate it. Okay, so DPD Music asks, we did have some trouble. Okay, let me see if he. Okay, so he's putting the question in there twice. Okay, so we did have some trouble getting a non-muddy, heavy rhythm tone out of Nolly and Pliny. Any suggestions on processing the DI before? I tried cutting lows, and it helps, but it's not quite as expected. Okay, so here's a couple of things that I would do. Especially with the Nolly. Let me go ahead and just pull up. I'm going to pull up Pro Tools real quick. Because there's a couple of things that you can do in the plugin. Like you don't necessarily have to affect the DI right off of the bat. But let's say going to take these guitars. I'm going to duplicate them so I don't fuck up my settings. Right, so this is just, you know, just guitars. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the nollie on these two. Why is one louder than the other? Oh, because I just ducked that one for. Okay, so here's a couple of things that you can do to affect your DI before it hits the head. I'll start with the nollie, then I'll move on to the pleni. So the biggest things, the place that I would start is the master volume control. Let's start with the nollie first. I would start with the master volume control because this controls so much of the low and low mids that it's crazy. Especially with the volume compensation, it makes it very, very easy to dial in good sounding tones. So let's actually... Let's make this so that I don't have to work quite as hard. G example. All I'm doing currently is I'm grouping these two, so that way, like these two. Let's get rid of that one there. There you go. So now when I make movements to a one plugin, the other follows suit. So I'm going to move the master volume control up and down so you can hear how this DI is affected by the master volume control. Okay, so the master volume control, you definitely hear as you start pushing it up, like those low and low mids like really start creeping up. So if you want to brighten up your signal, or at least like maybe if you think about it like just taking out some of those low mids, turn the master volume control down. It saturates the power amp section less, so you get less of those mid ranges that you're talking about. So the mid range knob, I actually like pumping this up because it affects a nice area of the upper mids that I like. Like it gives it more voice, more clarity to the picking. So I wouldn't suggest scooping the mids. But yeah, so the master volume tone down. Now let's put this up in a different position. Okay, so that's there. That's a little bit maybe too much or something like that, right? So now I can go over to my overdrive pedals. All right, so then I'm boosting the brightness of the DI into the head section, so that way it's a little bit brighter as an outcome. This one's a little bit more heavy-handed on that way. And you'll see that I'm actually turning the drive and the gain down all the way. So basically all this is doing is just shaping the DI as it comes into the head section. So those are a couple of things that you can do with the nollie off the gate. I mean, obviously the impulse response is going to matter so much to your overall sound. The nollie is pretty dark overall, which is cool because I find that the darker tones tend to fit in the mix a little bit better. So when I'm actually like putting maybe like a high shelf on my guitars, it doesn't become like there's not as many like resonant frequencies. So that if I do like a high shelf, it's just bringing up the presence rather than pulling up like 4K or 3.5K, which I have problems with. Yeah, so that's how I would do it with the nollie. Um, I would say that probably with the Plini, my the way that I go about it with the Plini is not very different. Hopefully you've all been able to see everything that I've been doing. Okay, great. Yeah, no, nothing bad. Now, I almost always dip 125 hertz and 250 hertz on pretty much any of the plugins. But yeah, so those are a couple of things that you can do. So like you notice that most of my moves are very, very similar. The master knob does pretty much the same thing. Let me see. The only problem with the Plini that the Nolly does not have is the volume compensation on the master volume control. I don't know exactly why. That was a different choice between the two, but it is what it is. So yeah, so those are a couple of things that you can do if you want to really get rid of like the sort of mid-heaviness of your guitars. You don't necessarily have to process it I mean, you can. That's always going to be, that's always an option, and I don't think that people should be afraid of doing that. But definitely, you want your DI to have as much information as possible going into the head, and only adjust the DI when you feel it's absolutely necessary. So, all right, let's see, where are we at? Okay, Evolution Studios asks, how do I record the Archetype of Bossy plugin? If I'm using Reaper, what steps or things would I need to be able to record it on my tracks? I'm using a Focusrite interface as well. I mean, if you have the Focusrite interface and you're plugging in directly to your 1/4 inch input, that's pretty much all you need. It's just a matter of looking up how to arm your tracks. Oh, wait. Oh, if you're using a Reaper. Okay. If you're using Reaper... No, that was GarageBand. Okay, if you're using Reaper, just look up a video on how you arm your tracks to record. Make sure that your inputs and your outputs are set correctly. And then make sure your buffer is set to a position where you are not experiencing latency. So those are a couple of things that you could do. But if you have issues, go to the Facebook group and then use this search bar. Don't post about it immediately, but just use the search bar and try and find the issues that you're having. Post about it if you need to, of course, but search for it first because it's generally been addressed in previous topics because the support team at Neural DSP is phenomenal. Seb is the best. So yeah. Sasha asks, can Archetype Plini make real modern metal tones? I'm owning it about a year and still can't get metal tone perfection. Yeah, it absolutely can. I've used the Archetype Plini's third head a couple of times in some artist tone videos. And I mean, like, I think it's just a matter of dialing in the saturation correctly. Because that third head is pretty heavily saturated. So what I would do is I would mess around with the overdrive pedal. Take the overdrive pedal and dial in the drive and the tone how you want, and then take the level and dial it back to the point where the head isn't saturating as much. But I find that a lot of people tend to make the third head a little oversaturated. So that's generally, I feel, that could contribute to dialing in a good metal tone. So. Oh, yeah, DPD Music says, thank you so much, we'll give that a spin. And sorry for asking twice. Dude, don't worry about it. This chat is constantly scrolling, so no, I appreciate you asking twice and making sure that I saw your question, so no worries, brother. Akash VS asks, riff competition is also for bass or just guitars? Dude, do bass. have some fun with it, man. Make your own production, layer as many bass parts as you want. Like this competition, I really wanted to be open-ended, so people had some fun with this. As I mentioned before, we are in unprecedented times, and I feel like giving people something fun, interesting, challenging, collaborative to work on will only help everybody kind of cope with the current situation. So yeah. So I mean, like, if you want to do just bass and just throw your bass riffs down, like, absolutely, by all means, go for that. Yeah, we want to be as inclusive as possible. Christian says, hey man, I've been trying to log into my Neural DSP account today, and it says I'm blocked from the platform. Any idea why? Dude, hit up support at neuraldsp.com. They'll get you sorted. I'm not sure why you would be blocked from the platform, but hit them up and just make sure that nothing is wrong. So I don't think anything is wrong. I think they'll get you sorted out pretty quickly. But yeah, so hit them up. Support at neuraldsp.com. They're the best, honestly. Like, we legit have like some of the best support like in the business. It's awesome. All right. So I am more 666 asks, will there be a tuner update for the Parallax soon? I think so. I'm not sure. We'll see. Soon? How many of the answers can I give that I've already retread? Oh, so many times. It's not the question. I think we're gonna get one pretty soon, but I'm not sure exactly when that's gonna be. So I give the same answer. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's an interesting question. X88MK says, NTS and Nameless are both amazing, but I'm not sure which one to go with. What are the greatest differences between them to consider? Why might someone prefer one over the other? To me, the greatest differences between them are the saturation characteristics. To my ear, I consider the NTS to be more 6L6, sort of Mesa Boogie, silky, high-end saturation, right? Like if you want something that cuts through the mix, I mean, they both are very cutting, but like, yeah, I think I'll go back to the saturation characteristics. Why one would use one or the other, I feel, is a lot to do with personal preference, but also, and I've kind of spoken about this on some of my most recent videos, is as far as vision is concerned. The vision of your mix, of your track, will inform all of your decisions when it comes to that sort of stuff. So the thing that I always do when it comes to like the artist tone series, for example, is I bring up every one of my plugins, and whatever gets me closest to the vision of the track, like whatever gets me closest to the vibe, that's what I'm going to go with. In that same sense, if I'm like, say I'm working on a personal track, like something of my own, like I have a couple of tracks that I'm thinking about working on again pretty soon. Just to have something of my own going out there, some of my own riffs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my production and my song pretty much where I want it to be. And then what I'll do is I'm going to switch between the amps and see what fits the song the best. So in some cases, I feel like the NTS might suit, especially like maybe faster picking songs, might suit a little bit more of like the sort of techie sort of stuff. Whereas the chunkiness of the saturation of the Nameless might work better for like bigger, heavier riffs. So, I mean, like, this is just kind of like, supposition at this point, but like I generally try to think of it as like what's going to fit the track best. So in that sense, I'm very utilitarian in that way, where it's like whatever gets the best sound on the track, that's what I'm going to go with. Because there's been certain times when I've done mixes for people and I've been like, okay, man, the Nolly's going to work on this one. And then it doesn't. And I have to go with something completely, different that I thought wasn't going to work. That's even happened on a couple of the Artist Tones videos where I was like, you know what? I think it's going to be this one. Yeah, that's what it was. I did the Artist Tones video on, Alice in Chains. And I thought for sure that I was gonna love like either the Pliny or the Nolly the best on those tones. I ended up actually loving the Nameless the best. Come to find out that it's like, okay, well, yeah, the Nameless is more of that modded Marshall kind of tone, which they have, going with like, I think it was like the Bogner Shiva and a couple other like Bogner modded amplifiers. So like, it's personal preference for sure. It's also whatever fits the track the best. Or the part even. Like I'm not opposed to doing different amps on different parts because something may fit a little bit better in different parts. So yeah, so that's kind of my roundabout way of answering that question is that I love both of them and they would definitely work in different situations. Okay, so Carlston asks a good question. The other day, I realized that there was some kind of sibilance, high-pitched noise, while using Nameless. Could it be a poorly treated room, a poorly dialed plugin, or anything else? It could be a mixture of all of these things, unfortunately. So, like, the first thing that I would do is start messing around with the position of the impulse response. It is good, however, like, that you are able to hear that. Like, if I can digress for a moment, like, if you notice that there are resonant frequencies, that's generally what they're called, is resonant frequencies, like in the like they're around 4K, 5K, something like that, in that presence area, that kind of sound. That's good that you can hear those because then you can attenuate them after the fact. But what I would do first, since the environment is more difficult to change than the plugins, I would address the plugin first. I would start with the impulse responses and move the impulse response further away from the dust cap. So you get a little bit darker sound, but like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to listen to your guitar and you're going to be like, okay, I can hear these frequencies. You're going to move the impulse response away from the dust cap, which is like more towards the outside of the cone. It's going to be very dark at first. Give your ears a moment to adjust to that new position, and I think you'll like it a little bit better. I've gradually been working my way out to the outside of the cone as I go along, because I find that like the little bit further outside of the cone, you get a little bit less of those harsher frequencies. And then once you start actually building up a mix, those frequencies don't compound on each other. So that way, again, as I mentioned probably earlier in the stream, you can put a high shelf on your guitars and bring up that high end, that presence, without having those resonant frequencies become problematic later in the mix. Anyway, so yeah, just check out the impulse response first. Maybe dial back either the gain or the presence, something like that. Kind of dial back some of these things that'll introduce these resonant frequencies, which are gain, presence, highs. Maybe turn on like the hex drive and turn the tone back or something like that. Those are all things that you can definitely do to address those frequencies. And then after that, once you've like kind of dialed in a tone, if you're still dealing with those frequencies, put an EQ in after. Like if you're in a DAW specifically, if you're in a DAW, put an EQ in and make a very, very fine cut and pull those frequencies out. But as far as like, and again, like addressing your environment is going to be the last step. So if you just cannot get rid of them, then you want to address it. So Tyler Britton, what's up, dude? Good to see you, man. All right. Nice. Chernobyl Studios says, Neural DSP, I love your plugins. I use them all the time with my clients, Nameless, NTS, and Omega. Fuck yeah, man. I love the Omega. I wasn't sure how the Omega was gonna be received. But yeah, no, that thing is fucking awesome. Especially I love the low end push on like the 121 impulse responses in that thing. Like you could really like chug and like you just feel that low end pushing on your chest. Okay, this is an interesting question. This is a good one. FX80. We're kind of going over our usual hour right now, but like since I'm getting so many questions right now, I might as well just address them and just push on through to the other side. break on through to the other side. Okay, so FX80 says, he asks, I will release my first single soon. Do you recommend that I provide to mixing engineer ready-made audio files of the guitar tracks, or provide the only the DIs and the engineer use the plugins for mixing? Okay, so that is a good question. From the perspective of, the artist, I would definitely make sure that your vision is addressed and, respected by the engineer. So I would definitely commit those tones that you like, and then send those along with the DIs to the mixing engineer. In that sense, they will have an idea of what you were going for, but if they can kind of get to that same tone in a better way, a cleaner way, or whatever, like they'll kind of know a little bit more about the vision that you're looking to get out of your track. And then if they want to try it themselves, or they have a better approach to it, then they can do it themselves. But I think that what this ultimately does by sending them the tones that you want is communicating what you want from them. And then if they don't have the plugins that you have, then they'll have the tracks to effect at their leisure. So I mean, I think that there's definitely no problem with sending them committed tones as well as the DIs, and saying like, hey, just want to let you know, these are the tones that I got in the mix. This is kind of the feel that I wanted to go for. I supplied the DIs, for you anyway, just so that or if you have some better way of making the specific tone, then you can go about it however you feel is best. But this is ultimately what I want to hear, or the general vibe that I want to hear out of my track. As an engineer, I definitely, respect that so much more, because like if a client sends me just DIs and says, just make it whatever, it's like, I'm going to have my own thoughts on how I can make the track sound good. Right. I will have my own plugins that I want to go with. I will have my own vision of what the track should sound like. And that might not, line up with what you want to do. So definitely send him the committed tones that you make as along with the DIs. And then just, communicate that it's like, okay, this is the tones that I dialed in, and then, see if you can use them, great. If not, then, this is the general way, direction I want to go with them. Okay. Okay. Nitrous Crusader says, do you know Ichika Nito? If so, have you thought about working on a plugin with him? I've always thought his tones are very unique. I'm actually not really involved in the artist requisition side of things. So it's funny. I generally only know what artists we're working with maybe a month before the plugin actually drops. So like, I don't know him personally, and I'm not even sure if we're working with him or not. So yeah, it's kind of a funny question to answer, because I'm like, I don't know the guy, and I don't know if we're working with him. But that'd be cool though. Who knows? Neural DSP knows. I do not know. Chernobyl Studios. I've included your plugins in a training resource I created. Where could I message you so I could share it with you? If you want to message me anything, email me at steven@neuraldsp.com. Okay, so Christian asks an interesting question. Dark Glass Ultra versus Parallax. Which use case fits which plugin? I'm trying to decide between the two. Okay, so I've kind of talked about this before in previous streams. I feel like they're two different beasts, but there is overlap between them. And it kind of depends on if you're going to be mixing or if you're going to be performing. I generally use both on most of my projects, because on the mixing side, Parallax is unparalleled. uh, as far as like it's a multi-band distortion and compression unit, right? So like it basically pulls your DI into the parallax and combines the use of like 6 plugins into one. So it gives you clean, solid low-end compression, good mid-band and high-band distortion with movable bands as well on the low and the high. You can get some really, really great tones out of that, some good modern tones, clean tones. The only thing that I feel it doesn't do as readily, like I'm not going to say as easy, but as readily, like you kind of have to work with the parallax a little bit more to get those vintage tones that you get from Dark Glass. Like Dark Glass does modern tones very well. Husa, what's up, dude? How you doing, brother? He says, greetings this sunny quarantine, you sassy bish. What's up, bro? Yeah. If anybody doesn't know, I know Hosa. It's my buddy Dylan. He's a good dude. He wouldn't say that himself, but he's a good dude. Good guitar player too. I'm just gonna see how long I can continue complimenting him before he says something awful about himself. Great guitar player, good dude, funny, witty guy, you know, sexy dude, nice shaved head, everything. Pavel, what's up, dude? Anyway, back to the parallax and Dark Glass. So the parallax does really, really well for the modern tones. If you want some like warm, mid-rangey, vintagey sort of tones, the Dark Glass is definitely going to be that. But as far as like flexibility is concerned, like the parallax is awesome. You can't go wrong with either. Really, it's just a matter of like what do you want to get out of it? Like, do you want more vintage tones, or do you want more modern tones? I think that the parallax and the Dark Glass can do either. But like once you go over to like the VDU setting on the Dark Glass, it's just kind of like boom, vintage, great. So it's dialed in and awesome. Okay. Mr. Kiyami says, I saw on Instagram from Doug showing a very short clip where he is showing the Quad Cortex display, and it's about capture progress. Do you know more about that progress? Soon, more info. They do a lot of development. Well, like I guess this is sort of the challenge with working remotely. Like I'm in Los Angeles, they're in Helsinki, Finland. So there's a lot that they do, they talk about, and they plan that I'm not really privy to. So like a lot of the updates I get through, you know, updates through the Slack channel or something like that. So like I would love to be more a part of the process. Like honestly, once this quarantine is lifted and things start to go back to relative normalcy, I'm definitely going to be, you know, making my way over to Finland a lot more. Hosa says you will pay for this transgression in all caps. Love you, man. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so Simo asks a question expanding on my previous answer. He says, after the B7K plugin, do I need to put compressor and limiter? It depends on if you're talking about the mixing side of things. So generally, if you just have the B7K, what I normally do if I have just the one is I'll split the tracks. So I'll either do one of two things. I'll either split the DI into 2 separate tracks and affect them differently, or I'll send the DI to 2 buses and affect those individually. So what I do is I'll low pass one DI track, so it's just low end, just clean low end. And then I'll use compression, limiting, so that way like the low end is a solid foundation. And then my second track is going to be my distortion or my flavor. And that will be high passed, so that way the low end doesn't cancel out or phase issues or whatever. But I'll usually high pass up to like 400, 300 hertz with 12 dB slope, you know, give or take. I mean, like, it kind of depends. And I would have to like feel that out in the moment as far as what works. But generally what it is just that I'm splitting my low end and my high end up into 2 separate areas, using the high end for my distortion and my flavor, and then I'm using the low end for my compressed low end. So that way the foundation of my my mix is solid. Like it's the curse of the bass where like the fundamental lives so low that it lives in that area with the kick and everything. And like, you don't want like like, especially if you have a dynamic bass player, like you don't want that low end to be jumping all over the place. So like if you move up to the 7th fret on the A string to hit that high E, which is just an octave above that low E string or whatever, if you're on a 4 string, that low end just disappears if you have no compression, right? So trying to make sure that when you head up to that octave above, that low end stays solid. Otherwise, your mix is going to be very, very weird feeling. Oh, Colston, great. Colston says, I'm quite happy with the Eurobass as it is, but I was considering getting some plugins in the future, maybe. Thanks for the input. Yeah, dude, I fucking love the Eurobass. I use that, like, on the regular. Yeah, like, it's in almost every project that I do right now. So, all right, it is 22 past, so let's go ahead and start wrapping things up. I'm starting to get a little hoarse, long in the face and everything. Christian asks, so are you filtering the DI before it hits the plugin? Generally not. Sometimes I have, and I have done that on the Thrice track, which I'll go over in the breakdown video. That'll go up in a handful of weeks. But generally not. It's just on an as needed basis for me, where occasionally I might if I need to, and I have in the past. But generally, I try to affect things in the plugin first, and then address the DI afterwards. Because again, like the DI has all the information that the plugin interacts with. So I usually only take away or add to that if I need it. All right. Let's see. So yeah, so let's go ahead and, we'll just call this an episode. Cello asks, I would like to ask if you know if Quad Cortex will include amps, impulse responses, and everything for bass, or is it only for guitar? It will absolutely have stuff for bass. This is going to be a one-stop solution for so many things. Like the amount of modules that you'll be able to play with for bass, guitar, and vocals, because you'll be able to plug in XLR into the Quad Cortex. So like if you had a guitar and your vocals, you could have an input to go and a chain. Like you could have separate chains for your guitars and your vocal stuff. So like you could have compression, reverb, and chorus for your vocals, and then on a separate line, separate inputs, separate outputs, you can have guitars. You can even have 3-4 different instruments on a single Quad Cortex, because there's 4 inputs, 4 outputs. So you could conceivably run a full band aside from the drums on a single Quad Cortex. You can have 2 guitar players, a vocalist, and a bassist, have separate chains for all of them, and then do all of that. So there will be, and it's not like, and there will be effects and amplifiers and impulse responses for those specific instruments as well. So like we'll have a bunch of like dark glass stuff in the Quad Cortex. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff. If you go to the Quad Cortex, if you go to the website, it's either on our blog or the Quad Cortex page itself, where we actually have a list of all of the components that are going to be in the Quad Cortex currently. Aaron, what was your question, man? I saw you said didn't get an answer, but I still love what you guys do. Let me look back real quick. Okay. Okay, so Aaron asks, hey man, hope nobody asked this question before. Are you guys working on a single ecosystem I'm guessing you're talking about for the plugins. He says, I'm planning on playing live with the plugins, and I would be happy to switch between the Nameless and the Abasi. We'll see. I'm not sure if that's in the works at the moment, but we'll see if there's going to be like a universal system for them at some point. I know that's been a big thing that people have been asking about since the STL Tone Hub came out. But we'll definitely see what happens. Jello, yeah, no worries, dude. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Okay, so Pavel asks, how is the company during Corona, and how goes the sale of the Cortex? Generally, how is everything doing with Neural DSP? So far, everything's been business as usual with Neural DSP. You know, we've gotten I've gotten a couple of emails from Doug, keeping us apprised of our situation and the way that the business is going. And so far, everything seems to be going really, really well. Like we are not slowing or stopping any of our production as far as it comes to our plugins or the Quad Cortex. So far, everything is on schedule. I know that Doug is really, really good about communicating with the customers, though. So if anything were to change, I know that he would address the situation. You guys are never kept out on the dark, except when it comes to upcoming plugin releases. But that aside, I know Doug will be very communicative with the customers if there ever were to be a problem with the scheduling. So as it stands right now, everything is on schedule. Neural DSP is going on strong and healthy, which is great. Especially considering that, it's like my life is directly affected by that. Like I feel very, very grateful to be working for this company and to be involved with these people. So everything is going very well. And you can expect we will continue just going about business as usual. And, things are going well. Pavel says, yeah, the only musicians complain gigs, etc. I don't know exactly what you're... saying that musicians are complaining about gigs. Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's unfortunate, right? Like, we are going through a tremendous metamorphosis right now. I feel like this particular event, I mean, like, it's a Black Swan event, which means that it's unprecedented, right? This is something I never thought that I would live through myself. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of takeaways, and it's going to be interesting to see the wide sweeping changes and adaptations that especially musicians in particular are going to have to adopt and adapt to survive. Like there are, like, I talk to any of my audio friends, and they are the busiest they've ever been in their life right now, because people have the opportunity to create and make the music that they've always wanted to, so it's going to be interesting to see the fallout to this event, and how it plays into the everyday life of the common musician or even touring musicians. It's like, obviously without touring, what are they going to be doing? I've seen like so many people adopting like teaching, like remote teaching and stuff like that. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah. Matthias says, thanks for the hangout, bro. Enjoy listening to 2,356 Rift Challenge entries. For real, have a great week. Yeah, it's gonna be really great. I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody comes up with. Definitely gonna enlist the help of the rest of the Neural DSP crew to help me sift through the entries, because that's not, I can't listen to all of them alone. Yeah, man. Pavel says, yeah, I already see instruments on sale. Best time now. Yeah, people are going to start kind of cutting back on the frivolities. People are going to start looking at what's essential and what's not essential. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the the broad sweeping changes that are going to happen. Cello asks, I bought Nolly plugin recently and I use it on my offline PC for recording and it works fine. Do you need to connect to the internet to register it though? If it's like the only internet you're gonna need is for putting your iLock, the iLock license onto your computer. That's the only thing that you need internet for when it comes to registering the product. So check to make sure that you have that license involved. So yeah. Yeah, Adriana says, yeah, well, there are no gigs actually almost all over the world. But you'll see a lot. I mean, like, dude, I'm not going to lie. You're going to see so many people streaming from home nowadays. Like, that I think is going to be one of the biggest adoptions happening, because it's like, well, yes, seeing a band live is an experience all in itself, right? Like, going to see a band live is nothing like listening to the album. The experience of being physically there while they perform, it's unbeatable, right? But we don't have that anymore, you know, like that's, and I really do think you're going to see so many more people streaming from home or, you know, uploading content to YouTube, as it were. So, yeah, so I'm missing out on a thread right now. Yeah, Adriana says, yeah, they do all, and I really enjoy and appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely gonna, you know, yeah, we're gonna see some sweeping changes, and I hope that everybody is ready for it, and I hope that people adapt well enough to it. You know, like it's definitely gonna be, you're gonna see some people get left behind, and it's gonna be challenging for a lot of people, especially because the learning curve on, you know, recording and streaming is definitely steep. Like just getting my own setup working for this weekly stream is just been a nightmare sometimes. Like getting like the technical difficulties sorted so that way I can just have people look at my face over the internet is just ridiculous. Yeah, Pavel brings up a great point. Devin Townsend has been streaming benefit concerts recently on his channel, and I think that's fucking brilliant. And I love that he's doing it. He's a personal favorite musician of mine. He's one of the reasons why I ended up getting into metal in the first place. So I deeply respect what he's doing, especially doing benefit shows like this. So, but yeah, so I think that's the note we're going to end on this. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to go ahead and just, we're going to end on this. I went definitely over time on this stream. But I definitely did get a lot of really great questions this week, and that's kind of why I did it. Just having as much interaction as I do on this channel. Yeah. I want to thank you all for hanging out with me on this stream. Y'all are awesome. And I say it pretty much every week. But this is definitely one of my favorite parts of this channel, is just being able to interact with you guys personally. Yeah. Pavel says, hi, Disit, and he's been awesome. Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, you guys are great. Thanks so much for hanging out on the stream. Oops, that's good, my face. Thanks so much for hanging out on the stream. You guys are amazing. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.